On today's show, the Las Vegas run is now over for the Atlanta Hawks after 5 games, 0 victories, but a big game from Keaton Wallace on Saturday in the finale and much more. We'll get into all of that on the way.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1769 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Saturday evening into Sunday. And today's podcast was with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. This summer, FanDuel is cooking us all up. Yes, all customers with a boost or a bonus each and every day. Something for everyone, every day, all summer long. And the place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the podcast to make us your first listen each and every day. Please subscribe to this podcast, Locked On Hawks, anywhere you might find podcasts. That includes Apple and Spotify, as well as Overcast, etc. We're also on YouTube. So if you're watching the show on that platform, go ahead and like this episode and also subscribe to the podcast while alerting yourself to future episodes by clicking the little bell to notify you of what is coming up in the future on this podcast. And if you missed anything already, we've been very busy over the last, month plus leading into the draft. We did full comprehensive draft coverage before the draft, after the draft, night of the draft, etc. Then free agency stuff, trade stuff, and then wall-to-wall summer league coverage. Today was the 5th and final game for the Hawks. We did a breakdown after each and every one of those, plus news and notes in the middle of all of that. And yes, this is the last sanctioned game for the Hawks in quite some time, more than 2 months before they play again in the preseason. But at the same time, this podcast does not go away. So I'll say that right now at the top of the podcast. A lot of podcasts might go dark or go very sporadic in late July, August, September. This podcast is not going to be doing that. We'll have content each and every week, multiple times between now and training camp and beyond. So go ahead and join us for the rest of the time. But all that said, the focus of today's podcast will be diving into the 5th and final game in Las Vegas. The Hawks go down to the Knicks 90-82 at Cox Pavilion out in Las Vegas. Yes, they go 0-5 this week. I always said, and in fact, I said this before the week even started on this podcast, the win-loss results don't really matter that much. At the same time, you don't want to go 0-5 just for vibes, all that fun stuff. I certainly acknowledge that. At the same time, all 5 losses were by single digits for the Hawks. Their average margin of defeat was actually less than 5 points per game. So they were in every game, no blowouts. Would have been nice to get one. Obviously, they went to overtime on Friday, which we talked about extensively on that podcast just about 24 hours ago. But anyway, that is where that ended up, even with a big game from Keaton Wallace on this Saturday evening. And look, I talked about this a lot, but I have to talk about this a little bit more now. The big picture kind of takeaway, or the biggest story, I would say, from Las Vegas, unfortunately, was the injury situation for this Hawks team. And it was a big story all week, but even actually they had the fewest roster guys available of any game during the week on this finale on Saturday. Ultimately, they were missing 5 of their 6 guys who are currently under contract on some level. That is, of course, Risacher, who was out in this game, Bufkin, Mohamed Gueye, Nikola Jurisic, and EJ Liddell, all of which did not play in this game. Only Keaton Wallace of guys under contract. He's on a 2-way now with Atlanta coming up for the season, was actually available to play in this game. Bufkin and Jurisic were already going to be ruled out with injuries. We knew that ahead of time. If you missed it, Bufkin was out for the whole week, and then Jurisic suffered a fractured foot in the second game of this Vegas run. And then Risacher, all eyes were on him, of course. He missed the final 3 games with a quad contusion for the number 1 overall pick. It was my assumption last night on the podcast, as I did say on the show, that he probably would not come back and play after missing 2 games. We did cover that, but it was not a guarantee. But ultimately, before the game started tonight, they ruled him out for this finale. He was still in Vegas on the bench, rooting on his teammates, etc. Just for the record, he played more than 60 games in the last calendar year, which is way, way more than most players in this draft class. So there's no real reason to risk him at any level. Not there would be anyway, but he's played a lot of basketball in the last year. And by the way, while I'm here, he kind of looked the part, I would say, overall in his 2 games he played. Obviously, he didn't shoot it that well from a percentage standpoint, but he did lead the team in scoring when he was playing. He wasn't hesitating. He was letting it fly as he was instructed to do. Also flashed quite a bit as a passer during the run and showed the underlying skill set that I know not everybody appreciates, but like stuff that matters at the NBA level, like can you move off the ball? Do you know where to be on defense, etc. Just the sheer length that he has is certainly impressive. So did he light the world on fire? No, but I think he looked the way the Hawks wanted him to look in Summer League, even if it was only 2 games. And obviously the development that happens is not always on the court in front of everybody's eyeballs. It's a lot of that behind the scenes stuff. Keep that in mind. But not a total failure by any means. Just I wish he would be able to play a little bit more for everybody's purposes, including mine. But there you go. On that front, Mohamed Gueye also missed the last 2 games with a hip contusion. And I'm not heard anything else about Mo's status. He was on the bench as well. Severity-wise, I don't think it was anything huge, but he left the game, the 3rd game, I should say, a few days ago with that contusion in his hip, missed the last 2. Didn't have the best week on offense. He was pressing a little bit, I thought, offensively in Las Vegas, but I did like what I see defensively, generally speaking, from Mo. He fouled a lot in the first game and a half, but he settled down from there. Good rim protection, etc. It's a reminder, though, that he's going to be basically a rookie again. I know it won't be a rookie in actual terms, but he played so little last year because of the injuries that he'll be kind of doing it all again for the first time in some respects. So I know people kind of ask me like, what his role is going to be. I think if the Hawks are healthy, he won't play a ton early in the season, but that's okay. Maybe he'll go back to College Park and hopefully just play some basketball because he just didn't play a lot last year. But anyway, again, same thing with Risacher. It would have been nice to see him play basketball a little bit more this week, but I sort of got up, I guess, 2.5 games in, and that was enough to see some nice flashes from Mo. And then finally, EJ Liddell did not play in the finale. There was no injury, actually, with EJ, but he was in street clothes. The Hawks just decided to give him the day off, basically, at the end. And similar to what I said about Risacher, like, not a big surprise, nor is it a concern whatsoever. He's on a fully guaranteed contract, so he's going to be on the team, barring a trade or a weird situation beyond that. He played almost 40 games last year between the NBA and the G League when he was playing with Birmingham with the Pelicans organization. He didn't shoot the ball well in Vegas, but did average 7 rebounds and 2 blocks per game in his limited time on the floor. He had the one big scoring game. And for me, it's clear to me that he's an NBA player. Now, how good he is, obviously up for debate at this point. And I think he's probably like the 13th or 14th guy for the Hawks right now. So similar to Mo Gueye, I don't think you're going to see him play a ton, but he's on the team right now unless something changes. And I thought Liddell had some nice flashes along the way. We'll see him more coming up in camp in September and October. Big picture on this game as far as the team is concerned. It was back and forth. Actually started well. We'll get back into in a second with my overall kind of observations throughout this game, but they just didn't shoot it very well. That was the big reason why they lost this game. They were 34.6% from the field in this one, including sub 40 from 2-point range. They got up a lot of threes, which the Hawks like to do, 49 point attempts, and made 16 of them. Actually shot it okay there, but the Knicks shot it better percentage-wise than the Hawks did. Also, Atlanta missed 6 free throws, and generally just were not that good offensively in this game. 17 turnovers is less than there was on Friday, but kind of a fast-paced, rapid game. I like the approach the Hawks had in this one, and I think Wallace was really good, as was Windler. I thought was pretty good in this game, but the bench was, in contrast to what happened on Friday when the bench was actually really good for the Hawks, it was the opposite in this game, and the Knicks just had a little bit more. So anyway, we're going to kind of how this game unfolded in a second with my own observations along the way, but yes, first segment will end with this. Big picture, 0-5 is 0-5. No one's thrilled about that, but I wouldn't worry about it too much, and it would have been nice to see more guys that the Hawks are invested in to actually be able to play along the way. But look, when your last 5 draft picks are all hurt, it's hard to field a summer league team that's terribly interesting. And honestly, to have that many guys go down and still have Keaton Wallace and Dylan Windler playing is actually better than most teams would have been as far as like entertainment and interest perspective at the end of summer league. All right, that's all we have for now on that. We'll get into my thoughts in a second, but first, a word from our partners on today's podcast. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and summertime means baseball, basketball, and much more. You can bet it all at FanDuel Sportsbook, and FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. And this summer, they're hooking all of us up. Yes, all customers with a boost or a bonus daily, all summer long. Something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Bet on all your favorite players and your favorite teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and much more. At FanDuel, the app is really easy to use. They have all stuff you're looking for across the sports betting space, from point spreads to player props to money lines, future bets, and much more. The app is safe. It's secure. They cover the entire range of sports as well. That includes the NBA. The WNBA is going on right now in as far as the Olympics are concerned. It's about to start on that front. Speaking of which, they have Olympic stuff at FanDuel as well. NFL, college football, MLB, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and much more. And now is an awesome time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. One more time, the place to go is FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, and with all the injuries that happened, and as well as the day off for Liddell, a different group is available in this game. As I mentioned before, the least amount of roster guys available, but it was Keaton Wallace, Dylan Windler, and Rob Baker all starting as they had been most of the week. And then you throw in Miles Norris in Liddell's place, and then Jordan Bowden started instead of Moses Wood, who started on Friday. The Hawks didn't lead for a second on Friday in the first half, but in this game, they led on the first possession after a nice drive and kick by Wallace to Norris for a corner three, and they were actually up 13-2 to begin the game after a trio of threes, a layup in transition, and then a good drive and finish by Wallace. The ball's moving. They were creating good looks the entire game, and they were actually getting up threes the entire night. They just kind of got a little bit colder as the game went along. It was Wood first off the bench as the kind of wing shooter type. He played the most of any bench guy in this game. And they went to Ongenda off the bench as the backup center. He actually was 20 minutes for him. Jarkel Joyner as backup point guard. And then Emmett Wallace played a little bit on the wing for the second time this season for Atlanta. The Hawks were actually really bombing the entire way through, but they took 10 threes in the first 7 minutes. They were getting them up. They did slow down from there. The inside the arc shooting was the problem the entire game. They went up by as many as 11 points early on, and were up by only 3 quickly after that. Actually, they played Mokhtar Gueye for the first time, and the only time all week in Las Vegas. He played 3 minutes off the bench. He was the last guy on the team to appear, so the entire roster did play in Las Vegas. But then there was a huge drought offensively. The Hawks did not have a field goal for more than 8.5 minutes between the end of the first quarter and the beginning of the second quarter. I believe there was a 22-4 run by the Knicks to basically go from the Hawks being in control of the game to the Knicks being in control of the game. And while the Hawks did bounce back from there, that was kind of the biggest swing in the entire game. Finally, Wallace stopped that with a nice tough finish in the lane. I thought Miles Norris had a nice play late in the first half, had a nice steal by reading the passing lane beautifully. Climbed in front of it, steal, coast to coast, drew a foul. He looks pretty decent to me in a small role, relatively speaking, for this Hawks team in Summer League. They were down by 5 at the half, despite that ugly mid-half stretch. They actually went cold from 3, missed like 9 out of 10 at one point. They shot it pretty poorly in the first half overall from 2-point range, but Wallace was really good, and that was kind of the highlight of that. After halftime, it was a little bit better offensively for a while in the third quarter. Windler hit a 3, Bowden hit a 3 early on, but they also allowed 12 points in the first 2 minutes of the second half to kind of lose ground on the scoreboard. They were down by as many as 10 mid-quarter in the third. There was more Wallace, though, a nice drive and finish that kind of drew a foul. Moses Wood and actually Jordan Bowden hit a couple threes to keep the Hawks kind of in touch in the middle of the quarter. They were down 7 at the end of the third still, but they were within 4 early in the fourth until a 7-0 run by the Knicks to kind of push the lead back out. There was another big dunk. So yesterday, I'm sure people probably saw this on social media, but Ongenda had a big dunk on a lob on Friday. And then today he had another one. Actually, this time it was a tip dunk off of a rebound, but he was kind of flying in. I thought he was pretty solid as a backup center in this setting. But the Hawks were down by 10 with like 5 minutes to go. They had one more last gasp effort. Bowden had a 4-point play, actually. As a reminder, he shot 45% from 3 last year in the G League. And he was 4 of 7 in this game. So that was a huge swing there. And then Wallace did a 3 as well to get back within 3 points. They didn't kind of keep scoring from there, unfortunately. They did have 6 straight defensive stops to kind of keep the Hawks having a chance to win, but the offense wasn't quite enough. The Knicks made a 3. Then Wallace actually made a 3 of his own to get back within 3 again, about 2-minute mark. But then that was as close as it got the rest of the way. The Hawks were actually never in the lead in the fourth quarter. There was a nice reverse layup by Windler that was noticeable and impressive at the very, very end of the game. But the Knicks hit a 3 a few possessions later than that to go up by 8 points. That was basically the end of that. And the Hawks kind of punted at the very, very end. But, again, big picture, it wasn't the prettiest game for Atlanta. They did take a lot of threes. I thought the process was actually pretty good for the most part. Rob Baker was struggling a little bit. I thought Moses Wood was also not his best, but I thought the guys that mattered the most, probably that I would say on the roster, Wallace is in his own tier as the only roster guy, but also Windler, Norris, and Bowden all looked pretty good to varying degrees in this game. It was kind of the bench that was struggling, plus Baker and Wood is the kind of the sixth man. All those guys a little bit rocky. But one more time here, big picture. They had 19 assists in the game and 17 turnovers. That's a rough ratio, to be sure. 33% from 3 is fine, but you want to shoot better than that, especially when you're getting up a ton of attempts. They did hold the Knicks to only about half the attempts from 3-point range, which is usually a good fundamental strategy. It just didn't pay off here because they actually made their shots. They held Tyler Kolek in check, the kind of biggest name guy on the Knicks roster, along with Pacome Dadier, who's their first-round pick. Those guys didn't really do much, actually. It was the bench guys for the Knicks. It was, Rokas Jotabitis, et cetera, that were kind of the key in this game. But anyway, without getting too deep into the weeds there, the Hawks didn't shoot well from inside the arc. They only had 20 points in the paint in a 40-minute game. That's really hard to do, even when you get to the line a lot. And it was kind of okay there, but there just wasn't a lot of pressure being put on the rim throughout this one. Jump shooting kind of let them down at the end of this contest. Okay, we'll get into some overall takeaways from the week when it comes to guys like Wallace and Windler who played all the way to the end, I should say, and then also some player-by-player stuff from this game. But first, a word from our partners on today's podcast. Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors, and passion, drive, and patience. With the formula of winning championships, it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. At eBay Motors, they have everything you need to maintain your vehicle and also level up to peak performance, because that's what you want. You want it maintained, you want it to be consistent, and also level it up to its peak efforts. From superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and much more, whether you're into speed, into power, into style, they have you covered across the board at eBay Motors with everything you are looking for. And I really do mean everything. In fact, they have over 122 million parts. For your number one ride or die, you'll always find what you're looking for at eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you will also have that part be guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money's coming back to you, because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, of course, but you are not burning any cash. With all the parts that you need at the price they're looking for, it's easy to turn that car that you have into an MVP that you want to be, and also bring home that win that everybody is seeking in our lives. Keep a ride or die alive right now at ebaymotors.com. One more time, the place to go is ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, and we'll kind of knock out the player-by-player evaluation stuff here before we sign off. We'll save Wallace and Windler for the end because I have some big picture thoughts on them beyond today's game. But the bench, as I mentioned before, was kind of weird in this one and not in a great way. Moses Wood took 10 shots. They took 7 threes. I actually want him to bomb even more, probably. He's kind of a pure specialist, but I don't think he was particularly good in this game. He was 0-3 on twos. Did have 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 6 points for Moses Wood in 22 minutes. He was kind of the one rookie the Hawks brought in beyond the guys they drafted for Summer League, and he kind of appeals to them as a shooter, but wasn't fantastic all the way through the week. Matthews Jr. was a small part of the offense and only played 7 minutes. He's more of a defensive specialist anyway, dating back to College Park, but 2 points, 7 minutes for him. I thought Agenda looked pretty good, actually, in 20 minutes. 6 rebounds, 5 points, had a block, good energy. I think he would be good to be going at College Park. Hopefully that's the plan. I think he certainly would fit there and be able to get in a little bit more around the rim. Jarkel Joyner's offense spiraled at the end of the week. Early in the week, he had a couple of big games, actually, and was getting all kinds of praise. And then I think defensively, he played hard and played well all week long. But at the end, didn't shoot it well. 1 of 7 from the floor today, 0-3 from 3, 4 points, 2 assists. That's kind of where he's limited. Obviously, he's pretty small also, but his defense is there. His effort is there. It's just that offensively, he's kind of a pretty low-ceiling player at this point in time. And then Gabe played 3 minutes, and that was kind of it off the bench for Atlanta. Rob Baker had a rough week, I have to say. I like Rob Baker, generally speaking. I thought he was pretty good in College Park this last year and what I saw, but no points, 0-5 from the floor, 6 rebounds, did have a block and a steal and 2 assists, and 5 fouls in 20 minutes. Miles Norris, I thought he looked pretty good again. 12 points, 9 rebounds for Miles in 26 minutes. He was 2 of 3 on twos, 2 of 6 on threes. Got to the line, made both at the 1 point. Plays solid enough defense, not like a big bruiser, not the most physically gifted guy as far as like strength is concerned, but certainly a decent athlete, pretty good range, and he could shoot a little bit. Took 6 threes, made 2 of them in this game. And then Jordan Bowden, only 1 of 8 from 2, which is not great, but 4 of 7 from 3. I think his defense is a little bit spotty, but it was okay in this game. Did have 6 fouls, but shot the ball well. 4 of 7 from 3. I think that he, again, I think I said it before, but he shot about 45% from 3 last year in the G League. And yes, not a huge sample size, but still, he's a real shooter, I think. And shooters that have wing size, you want to kind of invest in those guys. I'm not saying he has a ton of upside, but certainly something that would be appealing to keep in College Park if that is possible going into the season. And then the last 2 guys. So we'll go to Dylan Windler first. Windler had 14 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. He was 3 of 9 from 3 in this game. A couple of nice plays around the rim, I thought. And just in case I haven't said this before, if you're just catching up now, Windler closed this last season on a 2-way contract with the Hawks. Now, he, of course, was a first-round pick I think 4 years ago at this point. But also, he is aged out of being available to have a 2-way contract. So the Hawks do have a 2-way slot open, but he cannot fill it. He's not allowed to sign another 2-way contract. He's too much experience. So that's kind of the question there. But for the week, he shot 42% from 3, and he averaged 8 rebounds a game. And I think the rebounding that he's definitely shown across, in fact, he had like a 30 rebound game in the G League last year, 2 years ago, and the shooting, I think he's an NBA player. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be on the Hawks, but I think that he could be if the Hawks cleared out some other roster spot space. They have this roster crunch right now where there really isn't anywhere to put Dylan Windler. But if they were to make a trade or two and have some extra roster space, he'd be interesting. I think the Hawks like him. They brought him to Summer League for a reason, but I think he's kind of in a weird spot. I'll be interested to see where he sort of lands going into next year. But I do think that he is an NBA level player with the shooting and the way that he kind of feels the game as a passer and rebounds from that small forward spot. And then finally, Keaton Wallace, the one guy that's on a contract already for the Hawks. He had a good game today, 23 points to lead all scorers on both teams, 9 assists, also led both teams. 6 rebounds. He was 3 of 5 on twos and 5 of 12 from 3. He was bombing away, which I definitely appreciate of him. 3 steals as well for Keaton. I thought he was really good in 27 minutes in this one. I've already started to like him quite a bit, and I've been sharing that. He fits the bill of what I like to see, the defensive intensity. He can shoot a little bit. He can pass a little bit. Just plays hard all the time, which I definitely appreciate as well. And for the week, really good stuff. So he averaged 14.8 points a game, about 6 assists per game, more than 2 steals per game, shot 48% from the field, and 43.8% from 3. Not a huge sample, but even last year, I think he shot like 37% from 3. Like, he's not a knockdown like bomber, but he can shoot it. Like, that's a distinction that is important to note. Like, he's not a bad shooter at all. And for a guy who actually has some on-ball juice, has like combo guard size, and then defends, you can see why the Hawks kind of invested in him. Of course, he is the brother of Keaton Wallace, if you did not hear that already, but he also led the team in minutes by a good amount in Summer League, played all the way to the end, but was like clearly the guy by the end for the Summer League team. And I look forward to seeing him in camp in September, October. But he'll be around on a 2-way along with Seth Lundy. TBD still on Nikola Jurisic, who does not have a contract right now. I thought I covered that at length this last week when he got hurt, but he's the only guy that's kind of in limbo right now, in addition to the non-guaranteed stuff for Bruno Fernando and Garrison Matthews. We're about 10 days away from Bruno's guarantee deadline, so that'll be another one to circle in about 10 days. But anyway, that's all I have on that front. To end things up in Summer League in Las Vegas, I thought it was, again, not like a crazy impressive run by any means, but also not quite as bad as the 0-5 would kind of dictate. It's just the injuries, and that's obviously unfortunate. I think all Hawks fans, I heard from a lot of them. I don't blame you guys at all for being disappointed by the way that things kind of played out here with all the guys, especially Risacher going down, Jurisic going down, Kobe going down before they even left. Like, it's kind of just you felt like snake bitten, and I totally get that. So there was stuff to watch still. I think Wallace was impressive along the way. I still like Windler, etc., but I do get it, and we'll have full coverage later on. So I actually have to travel this coming week. I will have podcast content. I'm not exactly sure what day yet for the next show, but please stay tuned. I'll try to have some guests on whenever I possibly can. It's a little bit easier to go lo-fi when I'm traveling, but we'll see what my schedule indicates. But as I said before at the top of the show, we do not go dark on this podcast. We will be here multiple shows each week between now and training camp. So go ahead and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Overcast, etc. on the audio side. And then also, if you're watching on YouTube, one more time, please like this episode and then also subscribe to the show on that platform. Please follow us on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Roll, and follow my written work and some occasional audio sharing at patreon.com/BT Roll. And I really do appreciate all the love and all the following throughout this journey in Las Vegas. Now that I'm back at home, I definitely appreciate everyone listening to the podcast and following along on Twitter, etc. I appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you all next time.